In this video, we're going to take Pokemon cards to the next level and make a wall of 3D Pokemon cards. I've made a couple of giant Pokemon card 3D dioramas. They're very addictive, and you guys have loved seeing them be made, from the starters to our electrified Pikachu card. But I'm a bit limited by these big cards. There's only so many of them that exist. You can't collect giant Pokemon cards. You can collect Pokemon cards. And I'm going to be joined by Murray today, and we're going to turn as many Pokemon cards as we can into 3D dioramas. Now to do this, we need to make a frame that perfectly fit behind our Pokemon card so that when we cut out the artwork, we have a beautiful little windowed box into a scene that we'll be able to put inside. I have made this little template, which when you cut around, perfectly folds into the roof and the background, creating a curved panorama to create some really nice seamless backgrounds. And we have quite a lot of Pokemon to choose from. We're going to go for as many as we can, and Murray and I are going to take turns picking and make these worlds and Pokemon come to life one at a time. All right, I get first dibs, and I am going to start with Pikipek, who is tiny. Now in Pikipek's card, it looks like a really large horizon where we're sort of like looking off to the distance. So I want to try and emphasize that and create a sense of scale. The template for the background works so well, I thought I'd make another one for the ground out of a thicker card, which we can use to glue terrain bits to, so that we can work on the messy terrain elements outside of our box before slotting it in, so we don't risk messing up those backgrounds. Now Pikipek is tiny. I'm going to have him all the way in the foreground and want to create a real sense of scale with the fields in the background. When that's set, it's just a matter of placing our foreground features on which Pikipek will be. Picking a few choice sticks to be coming out from the side, which I can nestle Pikipek safely on. My recreation has really captured that difference in scale, especially with Pikipek and the branch really coming out and everything else being so distant. I think this one works a treat.
Yes, hello, it is I, Murray from Tabletop Time, and I'm going to be helping him do a bunch of Pokemon dioramas. And I'm really looking forward to actually giving all these little Pokemon homes. There's some really cool Pokemon here, a lot of my favorites, but I think I'm going to have to go with the fossil Pokemon. I've got a really good idea for this one, so I want to start there. Omanyte's diorama is super clear in my mind, as I always love the perspective that you see in art of the various fish and crabs, and the camera angle is looking up at all the ripples and reflections on the water surface. This is the first time I've actually drawn anything with alcohol markers. This was really fun. I love it. All right, I'm getting into this. Using some real aquarium rocks really helps sell this as well. And for the first diorama under my belt, I am so happy with how this one turned out. It's perfect and so cute. And this has given me real fire to start on the next one.
All right, in picking the next one, I'm going to go a different type, and I can't resist Geodude. Like, I'm going to just try and replicate the cards because the environments are really interesting and I want to convert them to 3D. The paint job of our little mini here is delightful, and he's a nice, decent size, so I think that could look really dramatic. And it just so happens that our Geodude model has a pretty identical pose to the Geodude on the card, which is perfect. This one's got a really cool sense of like forced perspective that I think is gonna more come into play in the foreground, with that canyon in the background and the bright yellow sand angled towards us in the foreground. Now I love the angle of the horizon on this Geodude, so I want to continue with that into the foreground, carving a piece of foam to sort of work with that Dutch angle, gluing it directly in place, and then molding that repair filler throughout to create a foundation that I can then sprinkle the sand on and set aside to dry. And when that's set, it's just a matter of dressing my scene, giving a third dimension to the bushes that have been drawn in the background by gluing a few in front of them, and then placing a few choice rocks around the scene, including one that I can use to elevate Geodude to have him springing up and towards us out of the card.
All right, for my next one, I pick Nidorina. Yeah. So Nidorina's background is a really generic landscape of nothing. I've gone for more of a classic appearance, heading off into the horizon, flanked by the long grass that you'd find the Pokemon in. And Nidorina's just going to be front and center on the path. My idea is that the actual foreground is going to continue the path into the horizon. Then all that's left is to put Nidorina in.
I'm addicted to the variety, so for my next one, I'm actually gonna go with Gastly, and I wanna try and switch it up and go for a different technique. So this time around, rather than blending card and alcohol markers, I'm actually gonna be using a black piece of card, but I also wanna create that glowing magical feel like Gastly has around him in the card. So I'm gonna try and work that in with the paints that I have in the background. Oh my god, this looks so good! Now, the great thing about Pokemon cards is the art is always so different in each of them, so it actually gives us the opportunity to be really different with techniques like this. And it's simple, but the effect is like really cool and suits perfectly for trying to match that vibe. Most of the work on this one is gonna be in the felt. I start off with the colors in the background, trying to create a bit of a glowing purple effect. Then I want to create this swirl of mist and dust breaking apart as Gastly is coming out towards us. I cut and glue Gastly into place coming out of the card, finish it all off with the final layer of the lighter grey, just a touch in the foreground as he comes towards us. Quite a different effect compared to all of the other cards I've done so far, and the result just looks awesome.
I need to deny Jazza the Snom.
No, I want the Snom!
Mine! Snom's art is just so damn cute in this card. I'm going to try and replicate it as closely as I can. Just try and replicate that heavily obscured appearance. Snom is on this really nice sort of bark texture of a tree. I'm gonna go steal some bark chips from the garden outside, give them a bit of a dry brush and see if I can just replicate this entire picture. Thankfully, I found a really suitable bit of bark chip that had just the right texture. So after hacking that into shape, I have a piece that fits perfectly within the little diorama.
One of my favorite of these little minis is Sandshrew. Look at him, oh my god. And the card is super interesting too. It's really not got background, it's all midground, foreground with all this shrubbery. So that first horizon background step, super simple. It's all the midground, foreground stuff that'll get this vibe. So for this one, I'm gonna go super simple with the background, which will just serve as sort of a foundation for all of the shrubbery I'm gonna put on top. A shrubbery! I wanna have my cute little Sandshrew in the bushes, sort of peeking out. And to do that, I wanna have him nestled and surrounded. First, a layer of felt to create a little bit of a division for the next layer, which is one of my favorite terrain stuff to work with. It's like this felt carpet with flocks sort of spread throughout it. And you can create sort of fine netting, which creates really cool 3D effects. And this is perfect to sort of pillow out and create this three-dimensional feel. And the result is a very comfy looking Sandshrew inspired by that original card. I'm gonna go big. I have to go Kingler. Kingler also played a massive role in our role-playing campaign. Now, this is actually what these minis are from, and I haven't really talked about it in any detail, so let's do that briefly now. Over on my Tabletop Time roleplay channel, we played a Pokemon campaign, and it was the best fun. It's all done and in completion. There's like 20-ish episodes, so you can go over right now and watch me and my friends, including Murray, roleplay as Pokemon trainers stranded on a deserted island teeming with Pokemon that we capture and mysteries that we solve. And there are so many amazing moments.
And a gleam, a sharp gleam on the tip of its horn as it looks like it is going to kill Fromantis with this blow. But I'm an honest man, and the first time I rolled it was 2 successes. You have caught a Kingler!
Pick up the necklace while you're back there, Victor.
It was so much fun, and I have to try and do that story justice with my Kingler card. Go check out Tabletop Time Roleplay. The whole Pokemon adventure is up there in completion and a lot of fun, and we've just launched into our next major campaign, Luchavera, which is the most fun I've ever had role-playing. A whole brand new world set in a Da Vinci punk Renaissance style fantasy adventure, and the mysteries are just starting to unfold. So it's a perfect time to head on over and subscribe. All right, Kingler time. With this coastal vibe, I'm gonna go with a bit more of a watery feel, this time using a gouache to create a nice vibrant background. I think my biggest challenge with this one is gonna be making Kingler actually fit in the card. Now this Kingler model is very big and I'm gonna need to break him to squish him in there. I've just entirely removed his back legs, and in the end I've been able to barely keep that front right leg, but by bending it over and forcing the arm aiming forward, I can get this really cool pose like Kingler's literally climbing out of the card. This is really emphasizing that 3D effect, and I think it's gonna look awesome.
Next Pokemon, I'm gonna do Ryhorn. I have an idea. It involves what you did to them, or what they did to you, perhaps. Tabletop Time roleplay. Go watch it. Go watch now. See, I'm a professional. I can plug this.
Go subscribe to Tabletop Time roleplay.
When I was looking at Ryhorn's model, I knew exactly what I wanted to try and replicate. This giant, angry stone rhino charging straight at the camera with billowing dust made from cotton wool all around it. Ryhorn is really big and he's going to take up a lot of the space here. In fact, I'm going to have to cut him up just a little bit to make him fit within the confines of this card.
My eye!
Now that Ryhorn fits nicely, I'm going to use felt wool and I'll tear it apart and recombine it, creating this nice streaky clump.
These are just getting more and more fun, and it's even funner the more we do. So I want to do a different type. I haven't done this type before. I'm going to do a steel type in Aron, who is adorable, and I really love the composition of this card. He's sitting on this nice lush green mound in the foreground. So a lot of mid-ground foreground work and a really cool sort of misty background. Let's see how this goes. And this one is very simple when it comes to that background. Really, it's going to be the layering that brings Aron to life here. Aron is nestled happily on top of a mossy rock, which brings him nicely into the foreground. And I want to replicate this, which I do by carving a piece of foam, gluing that on a card that I can cover in with my gluey paint mix and cover with flock. And with that dry, it's just a matter of filling it out with all sorts of bushes and shrubs to bring the jungle environment that Aron's in to life. Complete with a very tricky to place tree made of just some basic garden bed bark glued off to the side of the piece. And then our little buddy Aron finds a home, and oh my god, he looks so cute and happy in his little jungle.
I don't think Jen would ever forgive me if I didn't do, not Flapple, Applin. Oh, good save, good save. It's a little, so Applin is going to be a little bit different. In his card, he's really big, right? Tiny printed Applin is considerably smaller. My idea for Applin is that I'm going to have 2 paper cutouts for these trees that are going to be in the background. I'm going to try and make them a part of this background piece, which requires just a little bit of thinking and engineering to make trees that'll hang down from the roof of the diorama. I considered putting Applin on a bit of a rock or something to really raise him up, but the difference in texture and theme would just be a bit jarring for me, so I decided to stay true to the artwork and just put him next to the water. Just like that. Adorable.
Okay, I want to get something different each time, and this Koffing card, not only the dark type, which I haven't done yet, but it's like this really cool like autumn landscape, which also I haven't done yet. So that'll be fun, and here he is. In order to get this really autumn feel, I'm actually using this pre-tea stained aged paper that I use for some of my ancient aesthetic drawings that I do on the channel sometimes, and in a much more stippling sort of effect, building up a more textured and speckled feel of this autumn environment. And we have 2 elements that do move towards the foreground, some of these trees and these railroad tracks. So I have to figure out how to move those into the foreground a bit later, but for now, I just want to make sure that those 2 features are working their way towards us in this little skybox that I'm making for the background. I'm loving the depth and the effect of this autumn scene, starting off with a nice sort of mucky, yellowy orange repair filler base, which will be nice and sticky, and I can sprinkle on a mixture of flock, and then my favorite bit, these autumn leaves, which are made using this awesome little hole puncher and some craft paper, creating that really nice deciduous tree feel. This one's impressed even me. I just love the effect of this and the combination of the practical foreground mix with the depth and the style captured with the background.
All right, time for another. And I pick Ekin's.
Knew it!
If you know, you know. Now this Ekin's card has such a pleasantly contradictory nature. It's a dark card, but it's in this field of flowers. It's really quite stunning and really lovely. And I'm gonna do my best to try and replicate this. Luckily we have plenty of flower tufts in the studio, so this one should be pretty damn easy. Then it's time to apply all those flowers. I'm gonna absolutely overcrowd the area around Ekin's and shove in as many as I can fit. And just like that, Big Hiss is on his dream vacation.
There's a few reasons I want to do this one. The card art is really interesting. The background environment is sort of really abstract and weird and chaotic, which I think will be fun to try and replicate. With the way his arms are splayed out, I think this will be a really fun opportunity to make him feel like he's floating out of the card at you. Now, I really want to try and replicate this harsh, scratchy, interesting aesthetic in the Haunter card. I'm going to first create a foundation with the alcohol markers and using those interesting colors throughout the card, trying to keep that chaotic feel. When that's all done and dried, it's time to move into my pencils, creating a bit more of that sharp contrast and that scratchy aesthetic that works so well on the card art. Now, as fun as all the different things that we're doing in this project are, my little skybox template thing is easily the coolest thing that I've made in this whole video because it just makes so many different scenes super possible super quickly. I just love that I can capture a completely different aesthetic with different materials and mediums, and it brings so much of it together so quickly. This one is going to be even more fun because I get to go extra 3D with our Haunter here. Now the background for Haunter is really going to be taking most of the attention, so I'm going to keep the foreground pretty simple. It's just a matter of a bit of an interpretive painting to have this tie in with the background. And of course the funnest bit, chopping up and positioning Haunter to be climbing out and leaping out of the card towards us.
I've noticed that I've so far done quite a few backgrounds that have had a lot of green in them, so I'm going to try and branch out from that just a little bit. I'm going to go a little Zubat. I used hanging paper to create trees for Applin, and I think I might do hanging stalactites for Zubat. Now Zubat is such a classic Pokemon, and probably the bane of anyone's playthrough once you go through a cave. It's just everywhere. Zubat's artwork here is not in a cave, but I really like the colors, so I'm going to do a cave, but using these colors. And once I'd fought long and hard against the peer pressure to use both Zubats, it simply became a matter of working out how I can cram both of these in. It actually worked in my favor, as they seemed a lot more happy to glue to each other than to the actual stalactites that I'd created. So that was a win.
We're doing a pretty decent job of clearing our board of all that Pokemon. I'm gonna do Metang next. Is that how you say it? Metang?
Yeah, Metang.
Metang. He looks really cool, and his card is in this huge cave environment, which seems really fun. And this one is gonna be a bit different because the whole thing is in a cave. So I'm gonna jump straight into the sculpting step, getting messy with my sculptor mold and lining the inside of my 3D Pokemon card with the walls of the cave. Metang is much more of a bluey, metal-y look, and I want to bring it back with some earthy colors. There's a little bit of contrast between Metang and his environment.
I'm down to selecting my last Pokemon. I'm gonna have to pick Cubone. He's just too classic and too adorable. It's gotta be him. Now, I've been using these alcohol markers, however, it's all I've done so far. So for this Pokemon, I want to change it up, and I'm going to try something a bit more watercolory. Actually use some paints for this one. It's been a long time since I've done watercolor here, so this is going to be a bit rough, but this is going to be a lot of fun as well. One thing I can say for certain is that I'd really missed watching watercolors bleed into each other and across the paper. There's something really satisfying and really therapeutic about this whole process. Cubone is such a sweet little Pokemon and a fan favorite, so I really wanted to do something nice for him and create this absolutely beautiful artwork for him to live in. And hopefully, I think she'll like it. And with that, my final Pokemon is completed.
I am up to what I think will be my lucky last, and I'm gonna finish off on, well, he's the biggest model left, Venonat, who actually proportionally is quite similar in size to his card art. I haven't done a grass type or green card yet, so that'll be fun. And I really like the tone and color of this environment, so I'm gonna try and replicate that. Now, Venonat's art's got this really nice sort of mystical nighttime-ish feel in a forest where the greens become quite blue. And I'm gonna do this on watercolor paper for a change because I think the pores of the paper will aid a softer feel and create a sort of slightly pocked effect that might be indicative of that floating feel and then organic look of the nature Venonat's surrounded by. I'm really wanting to make this one sing with those laser cut plants to go in the foreground and the tree bark, which will become the tree onto the side, all with that nighttime tint to make Venonat stand out in his awesome nighttime environment. These are so cool.
Ta-da, we did it.
It's like, I was worried it would feel like underwhelming because we've done the bigger ones and it's like,
yeah.
But it's cooler. I shouldn't say stuff I regret, but I'm like, I want to do 151 Pokemon now.
No, it's more intricate and just, you know, sort of intimate little world for each one.
They really invite you in. This was so much fun. Every single little world has its own little story. Thank you so much for joining me on the journey and making this happen. I hope you've had as much fun as we have, and thank you for joining us on the journey. Make sure to subscribe for more awesome fun art projects like this. I must guiltily confess also, I tend to just subconsciously do projects around the things that I'm most passionate about at any given time, and I've been very passionate about roleplay lately, so I guess this was turned out to plug roleplay because we played in Pokemon and we're doing some awesome stuff over there at the moment too. So go check that out because it's really, really fun and we have a blast. And hang around for more fun with art and creativity while you're here. Thanks for watching. Bye.